One of the most common questions I hear from board members is this: what should I be wondering about? Or said another way, what should I be tracking throughout the year so that there's no surprises? Boards don't usually get into trouble because they ignore bad news. They get into trouble because they never saw it coming. That's where KPIs and dashboards come into play. The purpose of KPIs isn't to manage the organization's day to day activities. It's to make sure that the board has early warning signs, understands key risks, and can ask better questions before problems become crises. Today, we're going to talk about what KPIs really are and what they're not, which KPIs boards should focus on, common mistakes boards make with dashboards, and how to use KPIs to support strategy, not distract from mission. Hi, I'm Joe Blatt, and welcome to Joe Talks Nonprofits. After 40 years of working in public accounting, serving the nonprofit sector, I retired and started this podcast to help nonprofit boards and management serve their clients better. KPIs are key performance indicators. They measure how an organization, a team, or a program is performing against defined objectives. Not everything can be measured with a KPI. A KPI should answer a simple question: if the number changes, would we do something differently? If the answer is no, it may be interesting, but it's probably not a KPI. In nonprofits, KPIs generally fall into several categories. Strategic KPIs. These measure the overall organization's health. This may be the unrestricted net assets or clients served. Operational KPIs. This would measure how specific processes are working. For example, how efficiently your organization is operating or what percentage of your students graduated or entered college. Functional KPIs measure finance, programs, development, and recruitment statistics. And leading and lagging indicators, where leading indicators are early warning signs versus lagging indicators are more historical results. Board should focus less on activity metrics, things like the number of meetings held, and more on what's called performance metrics, outcomes, trends, and risk indicators. Not all KPIs are created equal. Effective KPIs share several key characteristics. They are quantifiable and measurable, for example, a 10% increase in membership. They are actionable. You can actually affect the change. They are relevant to the organization's strategy and mission. They are simple to calculate. They are achievable. They are timely. And most importantly, they have a clear owner. One of the biggest mistakes organizations make is setting KPIs that are not reasonably attainable. These objectives should not be aspirational. If goals feel impossible, teams disengage long before they even get started. Another common mistake is failing to assign ownership. When no one owns a KPI, everyone assumes somebody else is responsible, and when the goal is missed, accountability disappears. From a board perspective, ownership doesn't mean managing staff. It means knowing who is accountable and asking questions when results fall short. Let's put this into a practical situation. Imagine a school has a statistical goal to increase enrollment by 25 students over the next 5 years. This means the school needs to grow enrollment by 5 net students per year after accounting for graduating students and departures. The annual KPI would become plus 5 students, while the long-term KPI becomes a plus 25 students. Now, here's where boards often go wrong. Boards shouldn't just look at the KPI on an annual basis. They should look at it monthly or quarterly, and more importantly, look at the trends. Are we behind early in the year? Are applications declining, even if enrollment is still flat? Are demographics changing, affecting future enrollment? KPIs are most powerful when they show direction, not just results. Let's talk about the mistakes boards make most commonly when it comes to KPIs. First, having too many KPIs. When everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. Dashboards overloaded with data dilute attention and hide risk. Second, KPIs that are always green. If every indicator is green every month, the dashboard isn't doing its job. Either thresholds are set too low or the organization isn't measuring the right risks. Third, measuring what's easy instead of what matters. For example, the number of newsletters sent is easy to track, but donor retention rates tell a much better story. Confusing KPIs with anecdotes. Stories are important, but they don't replace metrics. Boards should never accept anecdotes instead of KPIs. As an auditor for 40 years, I always return to certain financial KPIs when reviewing my clients' financial statements. Boards should pay particular attention to debt covenants. If your organization has debt covenants, compliance should be at the top of your dashboard. Violating a covenant can put you into a technical default on the loan, even if the cash flow seems fine. Some other liquidity and sustainability metrics include current ratios or current assets divided by current liabilities. A negative trend could result in cash flow issues. Days in accounts receivable. Negative changes here could indicate problems with collections, including a risk of default or bad debt. Months of cash on hand, maybe under 3 months of cash, we would consider to be risky, while 3 to 6 months may be normal, while over 6 months would be strong. Operating margins or profits on sales decreases here may indicate higher competition or higher costs to deliver services. Trends in our unrestricted net assets. This trends downward. We may have issues again on liquidity, revenue concentrations. If one government grant represents 80% of our revenues, or a handful of donors represent over 50% of our annual contributions, this would be an area I would want to know about as a board member. Other financial KPIs could include program efficiency ratios, again, program expense as a component of overall expenses, fundraising efficiencies, the cost to raise a dollar, cost per participant served, contribution revenue growth rates, or it should focus on trends, not just simply compliance. A declining current ratio or shrinking operating margin may signal trouble long before cash runs out. Programmatic KPIs are harder to measure, but that doesn't make them optional. Boards should track community need and demand through applications, demographical shifts, eligibility trends. If the total number of students in a school are at capacity, but applications are decreasing, or the demographic of the number of children in the neighborhood is decreasing, this could impact the school in the future or make a difference if the school was considering expanding their classrooms. Program reach and output should be measured through the number of participants served, completion rates, and services delivered, while service quality and outcome could be measured through client satisfaction surveys, graduation rates, job placements and retention, and complaints or grievances made. These metrics help board ensure that the organization is fulfilling its mission, not just balancing its budget. When telling your organization's story to the world, wouldn't it be nice to be able to tell them you have a 95% graduation rate or you placed over 1,000 clients in permanent housing this year? Outcome-based KPIs are an effective programmatic KPI, but need to be balanced with other KPIs as well. If the organization only tracked graduation rates but ignored the number of students admitted into the school, we may miss a big problem until it's too late. Once KPIs are defined, management should build a clear, concise dashboard for the board. Board should focus on between 8 to 12 KPIs and they should be categorized between green, yellow, and red. Green being on track, yellow needing attention, while red would require action. And again, green doesn't necessarily mean ignore, and red doesn't necessarily mean panic. The goal is alignment, transparency, and early action. The goal of KPIs and dashboard is not to manage the organization, it's to ensure that the board is never surprised. Think of your organization's dashboard as a tool. Use it like you would use the dashboard on your car. Too many gauges are distracting. You want to be able to see what is important, your car's speed, the temperature of the engine, and how much fuel you have in the tank. As a driver, you can use the data to make educated decisions, such as when to stop for gas, whether to speed up or slow down, and if there's a problem, when to go to the mechanic to look at the engine. As the Cheshire Cat told Alice in Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. The goal of the dashboard is to take you where you want to go. Many boards may ask, why do we need to create a dashboard at all? We have tools already that we are using, such as budgets, financial reports, as well as programmatic reports. The goal of the dashboard is to put together the items that matter most to the organization's health in one place and make it easier to understand. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Hearing anecdotes from program leaders or what they achieved doesn't substitute for set goals and KPIs. Finding out something went wrong when you never knew it was broken doesn't substitute for clear guardrails. Dashboards provide a lot of benefits to the board that raw data doesn't. It helps set up clear objectives. It saves the board time by moving away from items that do not matter as much and can't be changed, tracks progress towards goals, and identifies trends in behavior and allows the board to take action to correct. With AI and technology, producing a dashboard shouldn't be difficult. The key will be determining what are the key performance indicators that matters to your organization. This decision should not be made by the board or management alone, but a combination of both your efforts. From my experience, management, when left alone to determine this, will not pick categories that they may fail or would require them to be stretched. The board may pick categories that are not relevant. Brainstorming together over time will build a great dashboard. Also, as time passes, the KPIs that were relevant a year ago may be less relevant today. So, refreshing the KPIs periodically will serve your board best. Also, what's a key performance indicator for nonprofit A may not be a key performance indicator for nonprofit B. Each organization needs to assess what matters to them. This can be done through a SWOT analysis or a strategic plan. If you don't know what a SWOT analysis is, it's an analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats an organization may face, and it's a key tool in a strategic planning session. I will have a separate podcast on strategic planning in the coming weeks. Also, the stage of the growth of the nonprofit may impact KPIs as well. A new nonprofit will have different KPIs than a well established organization. Remember, as you create these dashboards, a KPI is only valuable to you if you can affect its outcome. Otherwise, it's just purely data. If your dashboard tells a clear story, highlights risks early, and drives better questions in the boardroom, it's doing its job. As a board member, ask yourself, do we know what matters most? Are we tracking the right risks? And would we see trouble coming? That's the real power of KPIs. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please subscribe and pass it on to a friend. I'll be producing more on this and other governance topics in the weeks to come. If you have ideas for episodes you want me to produce, please feel free to reach out to me directly or leave it in the comments here. I'll include a link to my Instagram page in the notes. The information discussed in this podcast is provided for general educational purposes only and is not intended to constitute accounting, audit, tax, legal, or other professional advice. Listeners should not act upon the information contained in this podcast without first consulting their own professional advisors regarding their specific circumstances. Thank you again, and I'll see you next week.